Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dynamics of a Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to Professor James Moriarty, Napoleon of crime and arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. I'm Madeline Quinones, and I am joined by my lovely co-host,
Dixie Parkinson.
And we are so excited today. We have with us today none other than Daniel Davis, which is so exciting. So, okay. Ways to get in touch with us. Our website is dynamicsofapodcast.com. We are on Twitter as Dynamics of a Pod, Tumblr now as Dynamics of a Podcast, Instagram as Dynamics of a Podcast, and Facebook as Dynamics of a Podcast. Instagram, I'm still figuring out how to use. But Tumblr, if you're on Tumblr, follow us there because I intend to have a lot of fun with that. You can email us at dynamicsofapodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to support us, we have a Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/dynamicsofapodcast, and patreon.com/dynamicsofapodcast. We have some neat rewards there, and we might have some bonus content coming up, hopefully. And I think that's all the promotionals we've got to do. So far, we do not have any upcoming big interviews, but that could change at any minute. You never know with this podcast anymore.
I still can't believe we got this interview, so who knows?
Right. So let's introduce you to our guest. Daniel Davis is best known to television audiences for his critically acclaimed role as Niles, the butler, on the hit sitcom The Nanny, as well as his role as Professor Moriarty in Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Picard. Other television credits include appearances on Frasier, Ugly Betty, and most recently his roles on Gotham, The Blacklist, The Good Fight, and New Amsterdam. His films include The Prestige, Havana, The Hunt for Red October, and Roses Are Blind. Also a successful stage actor, Davis has appeared on Broadway in revivals of Noise is Off, Othello, and King Henry V, as well as productions of The Frogs, The Invention of Love, Amadeus, and Wrong Mountain, for which he was nominated for the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Play. He won the Obie Award and the Outer Critics Circle Award for his performance in the off-Broadway production of Talking Heads, and most recently appeared on stage in The Low Road at the Public Theater. And so now I think it's time to get on with the interview. All right, well, Daniel Davis, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you very much for asking me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. As we were just talking about, we announced this on social media. There were a lot of people who were excited right away. And we actually also announced that we were going to be doing this interview during our last interview, which was with the cast of a new play, Ken Ludwig's Moriarty, A New Sherlock Holmes Adventure. Oh. And the actor who played Moriarty in that show, Jeff Bender, he got really excited. It turns out that he's a big Star Trek fan, I think especially Next Generation. And he even said that you were kind of like one of the influences when he was like working out how to play the character.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, shout out to Jeff. I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Hello, Jeff. Thank you very much for the compliment. That's very nice to hear from another actor. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, all right. We have our 4 standard questions. They're a little bit edited, and one of them we had to go back to research and development because we were never going to ask that one the same way again. It totally backfired last time, but Dixie.
Now I'm curious to know what it was.
We'll tell you. We'll tell you, Dixie. Why don't you go ahead?
So our first question is, who was your first Moriarty? And I'll let you answer that in a moment. But I just want to say that it's very ironic for me to be asking you this, because you are actually my first Moriarty. You know, I was a Star Trek fan long before I was a Sherlock Holmes fan. So the first Sherlock Holmes adaptation I saw, if you can call it an adaptation, was Elementary Dear Daughter. You know, I didn't even know Professor Moriarty existed before then. So you were my introduction to the character, and you were just such a great introduction. Like I'm not sure I would be doing this podcast if it hadn't been for you.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the Moriarty we see in the original stories is a strong starting point for the character, but he's never fleshed out into a real person. And I think ironically that your version, even though he's a hologram, he actually feels far more human because he's allowed to, he has depth and complex motivations and he's sympathetic. And I think a lot of that is also just a testament to the strength of your portrayal.
Oh.
So yeah, it's just such an honor to have you here. And with that, I'll let you answer the question. So who was your first Moriarty?
Do you know, I anticipated, well, actually, I knew you were going to ask this. And so I went back in my memory to when I was a child in the early 50s, 1950s. And my parents ran a little movie theater in the town, in the small town in Arkansas where I grew up. And one of the first movies that I remember seeing was The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. And I looked up on IMDb and saw that their Moriarty was an actor called George Zucco. So he was the very first Moriarty that I saw. But I looked up further and found out that he only did it once. And then in all the other movies after that was an actor called Lionel Atwill, which I'm sure you know. And about it, both of those actors had careers playing sinister characters in movies. They were always the villains, or the the bad guys. But Lionel Atwill actually, his career went in other different directions because he was in some ways a more versatile actor than Mr. Zucco. So he was able to do some comedies along the way, and he was able to, to play different. He didn't get typed into being the sinister character in every movie that he was in. And he was wonderful in those films. And I think I've seen them all. I'm more familiar, to be quite honest with you, I think I am more familiar with the movies than I am with the stories, because I read the books and the short stories when I was in school, in junior high and even in high school. But that was 1,000 years ago. So I don't really remember the stories in any particular way. But I knew that, well, we'll get into that in later questions. But I felt that if you look up, I think on IMDb, you will see a list of more than 40 Moriartys. And I mean, it's been around for a long time, that character. Yeah. It's been portrayed in many, many different ways. But I mean, including people like Ralph Fiennes and Laurence Olivier. And I mean, it's extraordinary, the number of actors who've played that part. And so they seem to always want to cast it with somebody who has classical theater training. And that was really, I think, what helped me get the part in Star Trek in Elementary Dear Data. So I don't want to jump ahead to your question, but those two actors are the ones that I remember initially as being the first Moriartys that I was aware of.
That's great. That's the first time that we've gotten somebody saying it was one of Rathbone's Moriartys. So that's terrific.
Well, that's because I'm ancient.
I'm ancient. Several people that we've talked to are, more around our generation. So it's very normal for somebody who's like 30s or 40s to have first seen you, or Vincent Price as Professor Ratigan in The Great Mouse Detective,
right.
or maybe young Sherlock Holmes, or Eric Porter in the Granada series.
Right.
So No, that's great.
I'm glad. I think that, well, you go ahead because I don't want to jump ahead in your questioning.
So, who is your favorite Moriarty? And it's perfectly okay to say your own.
Well, I think that I really enjoyed Andrew Scott's interpretation with
Oh,
Benedict Cumberbatch. He didn't have that many episodes, I don't think, but it was a modern take on it, which I thought was, I mean, it was a modern take on the whole,
yeah.
Holmesian mythology. But I thought he's such a good actor. I liked him so much on uh, Fleabag. That's where I
Mhm.
first saw him. And so then to see, because he was, playing this priest, and he was a very different character from the one that he played as Moriarty, and a very versatile actor. And then I have friends in England who saw him play Hamlet and were raving about the performance that he gave as Hamlet. So, again, it's this classical training that seems to work well with playing these characters from the 19th century, and so I think that he's up there high on my list of people. I'm trying to think who else might have fit into that category, but it's not coming to me at the moment. He's the one I'm thinking of the most at the moment.
That's great.
Oh, that's a great choice. Okay, so what do you appreciate about this character?
Well, what I love about this character, this version of Moriarty, was that it wasn't the Conan Doyle Moriarty. It was, it's very interesting. Right now, we're in a controversy about artificial intelligence, AI. Everybody is getting really sort of agitated about AI. I mean, I even read an article yesterday where somebody was claiming that AI could wipe out mankind, could end humanity, and it's scary. But if you think back, we sort of well, rather Star Trek and the writers of these particular episodes really introduced the concept of AI with Moriarty, and the fact that he was programmed by Geordi to be someone who could compete with Data, who is another artificial intelligence in some ways, and even defeat him. So Moriarty has the qualities in the first episode of being someone who is capable of sinister activity, but on the other hand is struggling with his sentience and his awareness that he is not human, but he has, as he says, I think, therefore I am. He does have a mind, and he's able to manipulate things, but the struggle that particular incarnation of Moriarty has is to define what it is to be human. And that's, I think, what the whole episode was about in the beginning. And then it was even made more real in the second episode in Ship in a Bottle, because then we see him not only as a human being, but a human being with a heart and a mind and a love in his life, and with Regina, and it just was a completely different approach to the character of Moriarty, because he wasn't entirely evil, he wasn't entirely sinister, but he was entirely human in the sense that he could be all of those things at the same time. He could have a dark side and a light side and a bright side, and that's what I loved about it.
And I
Oh,
think
so
that's
great.
what we love about him.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Okay, and what is one episode of Star Trek, aside from the 3 that you've done, that you wish Moriarty could have been involved in?
The one episode I wish I could be in hasn't been written yet. And I'll tell you why. When I saw that Star Trek Picard was happening, the first year it was announced that we're going to have a return of Star Trek, and it's going to be focused on Picard in his future life, after his time on the Enterprise, I started fantasizing and crossing my fingers that I would be invited to come back. I didn't know how they would do it, but I just kept hoping that they would. And then I've told this before, but I guess it bears repeating. In November of 2021, my agent called and said, "We've heard from Star Trek." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Don't you want to know what it is?" And I said, "No, whatever it is, it's a yes." And so at that moment, I was not sent a script. I just was told that they wanted me to come back and hear the dates and we'll bring you out and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't see a script. For security reasons, they don't send out scripts because they've had some problems with that in the past. So I didn't really know until I got there. And then they didn't send me a script when I was in Los Angeles. They sent me the sides, little pages that I'm actually going to be performing. And I read it and I thought, well, this is not Moriarty. There was even a line that Jonathan Frakes as Riker says, "This is not the self-aware Moriarty that we knew on the Enterprise," because his behavior was entirely different. And I thought in my mind that we had gotten past all of that in the writing, that we're no longer playing him as a villain. So I really was confused, but I was going to do it no matter what. I was there and I was going to do it. And so I kept trying to have a conversation with Terry Matalas, and every time we set up a phone call so that I could ask, who is this? Who is this? And what am I supposed to do with this? He would be called to the set, and the phone call would be canceled, and so I never got to talk to him.
Oh.
And never got to really talk to anyone who had the answers that I needed. So I went to the set to start work. And of course, I was delighted because I was back with Michael Dorn and I was back with Michelle Hurd. And they are wonderful to work with. And Jonathan Frakes, of course. And so I said to Jonathan, can you help me with this? I don't know who I am. And he said, "Well, frankly, I don't either. I never read the scripts. I'm teasing, of course. Jonathan is such a fantastic guy." And he said, we'll just play it. And I said, "Well, that's what actors end up doing. You just play what's on the page." And so that is exactly what we did. And when I saw the episode, here's what happens. I started getting requests from CBS and Paramount to start doing these interviews with the press and with the fans, and I said, "I can't talk about it because I don't know what to tell you. I didn't know what I was doing." And I said, "I need to see the episode if possible." So CBS sent me a screener just a few days before it aired, and I watched it, and then I heard, after I chased them down the hall with the gun and got them, into where they could find data, I heard the line from Jonathan Frakes, "He wasn't trying to hurt us, he was trying to guide us." And I thought, oh, of course, in Data's mind, whatever mind there is at that point, he is manipulating Riker to find him by using the crow image of the crow, and particularly the song "Pop Goes the Weasel." And because I heard the "Pop Goes the Weasel" when we were shooting it, but I thought, what has this got to do with with me? So then I watched that, and then I was able finally to talk about it. Plus, Paramount had me under a non-disclosure agreement from November until the night the show aired. So I really couldn't talk about anything with anybody, but it was lucky because I didn't know what the hell I was going to say about it. So here we are, finally able to speak about it and tell my side of the story of really not really going there in knowing what I was doing. But now of course I do. So, and I think even what I played without really understanding what I was playing worked out just fine in the scene.
Yeah, that's incredible
Yeah.
because you still nailed it.
Yeah.
Hello. Go figure. Anyway, that's the story.
That's
And
wild.
to answer your question, it's just that they haven't written that episode where the fantasized episode. Can I finish this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The fantasized episode that I created in my mind was well, a little background information. When I first met Bob Picardo, who played the Doctor on Star Trek Voyager, Bob said, "I am so grateful to you because without your character, I wouldn't have had a character." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm a holodeck creation too, but they found a little way of putting an armband around me, and I would able to leave the holodeck and be the Doctor." I said, "Why the hell can't they make an armband for me?" So I fantasized that Picard, because Picard had promised, he had said out loud, "We will find a way of getting you off the holodeck." And Gene Roddenberry came to the set one day, and it was during Elementary Dear Data, and he said, "We're going to find a way to bring you back. We really enjoy you, and we enjoy this character, so we're going to find a way, and you have to." And Picard has had that line, and Picard never lies, and Gene Roddenberry never lies. And so I thought, okay, this episode of Star Trek Picard is going to be about me being lifted out of the holodeck, put my little armband on, and I live happily ever after. That didn't happen. So that's the episode that I want them to write someday. And, with one of the producers did say to me, however, that Moriarty is the kind of character who can pop up literally anywhere. So we have this, Star Trek has so many incarnations airing at the moment that you would think maybe someday I'll find my way back. Yeah, Kate Mulgrew and I are great, great friends for the last 35 years. I'm actually seeing her this weekend. And I said, "Why can't I just be in the cartoon with you?"
That would be fun.
That would be fun. She's playing, Jane doing.
Yeah. I've been watching that. That show is really fun. I would love it if you popped up on that.
I would love to pop up there or anywhere. It would be fun. So
we must start campaigning them.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Okay, that answers your question. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've got a follow-up question to that. So if Moriarty did finally leave the holodeck, what do you think he'd get up to in the Star Trek universe? Like, would he be exploring the galaxy? Would he go back to being a criminal or something else? Like, do you have anything in mind for that?
I think that if Moriarty were to become something like Seven of Nine became, who went from being a Borg to being a first mate or whatever her title is on, that he would be a great asset to any starship captain, because he has that sort of intuitive and instinctive mind for nefarious behavior that he could anticipate in other species or even among his own species, and it would be something that he could make a contribution to. It wouldn't be that he would be some kind of gun runner or some sort of drug lord. I think he would be a decent human being, and so I would like to see something like that for Moriarty in the future, rather than just, although I'm sure the fans would always prefer that there be some side of him that could be up to no good every once in a while.
I mean, that would keep things interesting for sure.
Yeah, exactly. What's he going to do now?
That would be fun. Yeah, maybe you could, like being on that the fan campaign's legacy show with Jerry Ryan. So, so going all the way back to the beginning, how did you get involved in TNG originally?
Well, I auditioned for the role of Moriarty. I went in to the offices at Paramount, to the casting offices, and the first person I saw, they put you in a room with all the other actors who are there auditioning for the same part. And it wasn't a big, huge room of people. It was, two or three. But the first person that I saw was an actor that I had worked with named Brian Bedford, who is no longer with us. But Brian and I had been Rosencrantz or Guildenstern, I can never quite remember, to his Hamlet at Stratford, Connecticut, the American Shakespeare Festival back in 1970, 71, somewhere in there. And I hadn't seen him in years, but he remembered me and we remembered each other. And I thought, well, this makes no sense. Why am I here? Because Brian is, he was an established actor, is film and stage and television and British. And I thought, oh, well, I don't have a shot at this. But I'll just go in and do what I can. And so I went in and did my reading. And I was with Rob Bowman, who directed the episode, and with Gene Roddenberry in the room. And by the time I drove home, my manager, my agent, had left a message on my phone that I had gotten the part. And then a little while later, Brian called me because we had exchanged numbers, and he said, "No hard feelings, dear. Come to dinner." So I got to have a reunion with Brian, and he was very gracious, obviously, about it all. And then that's how it happened. That was it. I went to work, I guess about 10 days later.
Oh, wow, that's great. I mean, it seems, you seem like such a natural choice to us now. It's just interesting to think about, like other people, the possibility of other people having done the role. So you kind of already, I think, answered this question, but we got some questions in from some friends. Some of these friends have actually been guest hosts in the past, and we hope that they come back to do that again because that's a lot of fun. But from Ashley Polisek, who is the world's only PhD with a focus on Sherlock Holmes adaptation studies. It's very impressive, and she's the only one in the world, and it's crazy and wonderful. But her question was, did you consider Star Trek or Sherlock Holmes as your primary text? Which were you more familiar with, and which did you focus your performance toward?
Well, I entirely on the Star Trek script. It was, first of all, I wouldn't have had time to research anything further. But number one, it would not have been my job to research anything further. I knew from movies and television, and even being I was in a play called The Crucifer of Blood, which is about Sherlock Holmes and Watson and Irene Adler. Is that her name? Irene Adler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I played Dr. Watson in that. So I'm, as I said, I'm familiar with the movies and I'm familiar with a few plays of it and so forth. But my job would be to have played the character as written by Gene Roddenberry and Brian Allen Lane. And so that's what I did. I just used the words that were there. That's my focus.
Were you a Star Trek fan before? I'm just wondering now if you've seen much Star Trek before then.
Yes, I was a Star Trek fan. I was a Star Trek fan of the original, series with Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and all those great people. I've done a couple of Star Trek cruises and conventions with those people, and I was a big fan, even bigger fan, actually, of Star Trek Next Generation, and I have to say it was because of Patrick. As much as anything else. His take on being was such a theatrical, classical, actory take on it. And I really, really appreciated that, being a classically factory theatrical actor myself, that I really thought, oh, great, this is wonderful that they have this guy doing this job. And of course, he made it entirely his own. And in fact, when I went out to do Star Trek Picard, I got to have a conversation with Patrick in his trailer for well over an hour, close to an hour and a half, really, because he was finished with his work for the day, and I had just come out to the set for a costume fitting, so I was finished. And he, summoned me into his trailer, and it was the first time that we'd really sat down and talked with each other to that degree. Back in elementary Dear Data days, I would go into his trailer to rehearse the scenes that we were going to play together, but it was never about a conversation. So I was able to share my theatrical history and his theatrical history, and talking about his plans following when Picard ended, and the fact that we both are well, he much closer friend than I with Ian McKellen, but I stood by for Ian in the role of Salieri on Broadway, and got to play the performance when on the rare occasion that Ian was taken ill. And so we had mutual stories. We had very interesting gossipy stories about Ian to share with one another, and that was a lot of fun for me. And so I'm going to actually see them all again on the first weekend in August, because Star Trek Picard got me invited back to the convention in Las Vegas. So I will be there on August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whenever it is, around that time. And that is always a great deal of fun for me. And because of, they have a tradition on the last night of the convention, they all get together and go out and have a wonderful meal. And they've been including me in that evening for the last couple of times that I've seen them. So I'm really looking forward to being back with them all again.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Well, say hi to them from us.
I will. Have any of them come and chatted with you?
No.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, I'll tell them they should.
Okay.
Please do.
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to have them. All right, here's an interesting one from Claire. In both Next Generation episodes, your character Moriarty kind of seems to see Picard as a worthier adversary than Data. At least that's definitely, I think, a pretty fair reading of it. Do you personally share that opinion, and why or why not?
I think that that it would be like Holmes. It would be like Moriarty recognizing that Holmes was the person to talk to rather than Watson.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to disparage the character of Data or Brent or LeVar or anyone, but right. I think that Moriarty's instincts to go for the authority figure would be, that would be the instinct that he would have, and that would be the instinct he would follow. And I think he recognized that, there is one little glitch in elementary Dear Data that is seldom talked about because it's seldom noticed. But it's really crucial. If you recall, Moriarty draws a picture of the Enterprise and gives it to Data, and Data takes it and shows it to Picard. Now, how did the drawing leave the holodeck?
Yeah, I believe because I've read the version of the script of Elementary Dear Data, and it actually, in the original script, which I don't know if you were given that version, it's just one that all the TNG scripts are available online. But the version that I've read actually addresses that at the end. And
oh, the end?
It's kind of, unfortunately, I don't have it pulled up at the moment. Otherwise, I could read out to you the end where I think they probably removed it because it kind of puts Picard in a bad light, and also doesn't really make any sense. But in the script that I read, as I recall, so Picard says at the end, after Moriarty has been sent back into storage in the holodeck, that he wasn't sure if Moriarty could have maybe have actually left the holodeck because the paper was able to leave. And so he was kind of fooling Moriarty. And like I said, I can't remember the details exactly, but they do actually address the paper leaving the holodeck. It was actually originally a plot point that sets up that bit at the end. But it doesn't work very well, so I can see why they cut it. So now it is just kind of this weird inconsistency.
And it's weird in the first place because, like, the very first holodeck episode, like those characters disintegrate. Like whatever leaves the holodeck is supposed to disintegrate. Why didn't the paper? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
That is my point. But they did. Well, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but they definitely did show it to Picard in the episode.
Yeah.
So fans, some people have talked about it, some fans have, grumbled about it. But I don't think it was, as you said, it wasn't, whatever the explanation, didn't make it to air, didn't make it into the episode. So it still has everybody wondering, okay, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Well, and it's so funny because Data still could have like actually shown Geordi the paper while they were still on the holodeck.
Yeah.
And that would have taken care of that right there.
Well,
hindsight is 2020 though.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that I personally enjoy about that first episode is like the dynamic between Moriarty and Pulaski. And like by the time they're saying their goodbyes, they're kind of flirting with each other. And like, was that in the script or did that just kind of develop naturally? Like,
well, I think it developed naturally because I felt a tremendous attraction to Diana Muldaur. So that might explain it. She was so much fun. And, she, how many seasons did Diana do of that character? Not that many, I don't think.
Just the one season, right?
I think, yes. I don't think that Diana it really wasn't her cup of tea to do the show. And I'm not telling tales out of school because she has said so much in the press. But I think that we had this sort of mutual understanding about, maybe even I remember her saying to me, "You take this far more seriously than I do." Well, that is my job. But, I just think that she took it all with a bit of her tongue in her cheek a bit. But yes, we kind of, our little scene together, the tea and scone scene, led us down a flirtatious path, which I think in some ways may have been why we introduced Regina in the next episode, because it was sort of, let's let Moriarty have a personal life that isn't about crime and trying to get off the holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that actually, one of the questions I had was, so what did you think about Moriarty getting a love interest in that episode?
Well, I thought it was terrific. I mean, and Stephanie Beacham is a wonderful actress and a wonderful friend, but it was exactly the same thing that Diana felt about it. It was science fiction, which was not really either of them their favorite medium. And they managed to get Stephanie to come to a Star Trek convention in Vegas one summer. And so we had a little bit of a reunion. I think we took a picture together with the fans. And I said, "Stephanie, if they ever brought us back, would you come back?" And she said, "Oh, I don't think so, dear. No."
Oh. It would be so much fun, though, to get the two of you back.
Yeah, it would be fun. But she has more or less retired. I mean, she still works occasionally, but she has a apparently a lovely, lovely home in Spain, and it's where she wants to be. So I don't know that she works that much anymore.
Can't argue with that, I guess.
No, not really.
Since we're already talking about Ship in the Bottle now, one of our questions was, what was it like to return several years later in Ship in a Bottle?
Well, I mean, it was fantastic. It coincided with, you know, because I'm so often cast in classical roles, I have a tendency to keep my hair long, and so my hair was almost the same length as it was when I had done the first episode, which was years earlier. I always lose track of time, but the call to do Ship in a Bottle came just weeks before I was going to do the pilot for the Nanny, and I was going to have to cut my hair for Butler cut. And we managed to squeeze in the episode just in time.
Oh my gosh.
So that I could cut my hair to play Niles on the pilot. Because when I auditioned for it, my hair was quite long, and they said, you will be willing to cut your hair? And I said, oh, yes, of course. I'll cut off my arm to play this part. So we got to do it. And we had Bob Blackman, who was an old friend from theater of mine, is the costume designer on both of those episodes. And he managed to retrieve the costume from Western Storage costume shop. So we had the same look, and that was great. When I went back to do Picard, that costume has gone the way of all flesh, and so has my flesh gone all the way of. So they actually had to tailor make a suit for me with the Inverness for Picard. It was all tailor made, which I was.
I hope they let you keep it.
No, they didn't, because I may need it again somewhere down the road. So they'll put it in Star Trek storage somewhere, I hope. But it was just fantastic to be asked back, and to be asked back at that particular point in history, because then that episode aired while during the same season that the Nanny aired. So it was sort of a double whammy for me.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, actually, that is a good segue to Claire asked if there was any overlap in production between Star Trek and Nanny. So the rest of her question was, what, if anything, do you feel you might have brought from your role as Moriarty to Niles, or vice versa?
Oh, I hope nothing.
I don't know. Niles could be a little devious sometimes.
Yes, he could. Indeed, he could. But it was always for a comic result.
Right.
As opposed to, a sinister result, which would be Moriarty's métier. I think that I tried to bring a little bit of humor into Moriarty, but not much. It didn't seem appropriate to me.
Right.
Instead of humor, probably maybe some irony. And of course, Niles is made of irony. So, so I don't know. I don't think that the two characters merge in my mind. Sorry.
What's funny though is that your role as Moriarty is what got both Madeline and I into the Nanny.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, because we're both children of the 90s. We were both too young when the show was originally on the air.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went looking up other things that you'd done, and of course, the Nanny is everybody just blasts that on the internet. So,
You mean that you didn't see the Nanny in its original airings? You saw it subsequently in
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah. Actually, veering off of the Nanny for just a second. Something that's funny. I hadn't watched Star Trek yet, or the Nanny. So you as an actor were not on my radar yet. But when I was a teenager, one of my favorite movies was The Hunt for Red October.
Uh-huh.
So what was that like for you? Like, you actually got to be on a real battleship, right? Or carrier or
We're on
something?
the we were on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Prize.
one of my trivia credits is having been on both of the USS
yeah.
Enterprise.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
so yeah, we got onto a retrofitted cargo ship airplane and took off from San Diego. Alec Baldwin and Fred Dalton Thompson and our director John McTiernan and our cinematographer and a couple of crew people were put onto this cargo ship and took off from San Diego and landed about an hour and a half later on the USS Enterprise doing a trap landing. But when civilians get to fly to an aircraft carrier, the pilots always have fun bouncing you off the deck at least twice, which they did. And of course, we were nauseous and looking for, barf bags. It was a lot of fun to be on that ship because civilians don't get to go on aircraft carriers very often without the permission of the United States Navy, obviously. My biggest trick on that shoot was that the Navy Department gave us three fighters, F-15s, or I don't know what they were because I'm not versed in that topic, but there were three of them that so we could shoot the scene where I send Alec off on the helicopter to look for the submarine that he's going to join up with, where I had to signal with my finger below camera line. I had to put my finger in a circle when I said the exact word that they wanted to have the plane take off. And when you know that each one of those airplanes we're renting for $1 million a day, so that's just 3 million for the planes. You don't want to screw it up. So
Yeah.
I managed to get all three takes exactly right, and they were able to print all three takes. And they told me, don't know if you can air this when I say it out loud, but they told me that when the plane goes into overdrive to take off, to just squeeze my butt because I might lose something. The vibrations are so intense that really I don't know, it can flip your stomach right over.
That makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah. just say the line and squeeze, and so that's what I did.
Oh man.
But it was a wonderful thing. We did the interior scenes on the soundstage at Paramount Pictures. I seem to work for Paramount a lot, which is very nice. And then we did all of that exterior stuff on the ship itself. And they used some footage from a plane crash that happened not while we were filming, obviously, but from a previous accident that happened on the plane. But it's actually part of the script in Red October that a plane crashes. So, so that was that. I tried to use a little bit of my Southern upbringing in my character and had a slight Southern accent with the character. There was one scene that was eliminated, which I thought I missed, and that was when I first saw Alec when he landed and I opened the door and he was standing there in the uniform. That my character was what I guess at the Naval Academy they call a ring tapper, which means it's a captain that wears the Navy ring, and when he wants to get your attention, he taps it on the glass or the table or whatever he can, and that's how you stop talking and pay attention to him. And my character was offended by the fact that a CIA officer was in the Navy uniform, and there's an issue about it. And I referred to it in the scene with Fred Dalton Thompson. I said something, I don't like him in the uniform. But it was a very big sort of confrontation right off the bat between Alec and I, which gave me a little bit more of an arc because I warm up to him by the time I put him on the helicopter to send him off. So yeah, it was a great experience. And then when we took off, we had to do a catapult takeoff, which is fascinating because it goes from standing still to I don't know how many miles an hour in about 1.28 seconds. And, you're strapped in as tight as you can be, but when it starts to move, you can actually see, you almost feel like you can see your own face in your hand. It's just really, really powerful. But they only took off once instead of landing us and bouncing us off this time. We just took off one time and kept going.
Oh man, that's very cool though. That's such a good movie. I love that movie.
It is a good movie.
So from that back to the Nanny, I know I actually hadn't even seen this. I just like briefly saw looking around on the internet today that it looks like Fran Drescher's trying to get something drummed up for the 30th anniversary, which I'd be down for.
Yeah.
But you guys a couple of years ago did a table read for the pilot. What was that like?
Well, it was fun to see everybody. It was done during the lockdown because, everybody was doing Zoom things to try and keep people entertained at home. And so they assembled us all, and it was fun to see them, especially the kids who are now all grown up.
Yeah.
You're the second or third or fifth or 100th person that's told me that Fran is trying to do something for the 30th, but I have not had any direct. I have no direct knowledge of that. Nobody has approached me or anyone that I know from the show about doing anything. So I can't address that because I haven't heard anything other than what rumors that are flying. But I have no direct knowledge of it at all. I would tell you if I did, but I don't.
Right.
I was at, Renee Taylor, who played Fran's mother, Sylvia. I was about a month or so ago now, I went into New York City and attended her 90th birthday party, which was fantastic. And she looks amazing. She looks exactly the same. Benjamin, who was there, who played Brighton on the show. And he is, 40 years old with two sons of his own. And Nicole Tom, who played Maggie, was there. We were the three cast members that showed up, and it was a wonderful party. All of Renee's New York friends, a stunning group of actors and writers, and it was a great, great evening. And we were happy to be there and celebrate her 90th. It was great.
Yeah.
She's still writing plays, still planning to do it. She's got 2 plays that she's written that she still wants to perform. So God bless her and good luck.
May we all be that amazing and active at the age of 90. My gosh.
Exactly. I'm shooting for it. As somebody wrote to me the other day, I plan to live forever, and so far it's working.
There you go. Alrighty. So one last question from Claire. Niles has been your longest running role to date, at least that we know of. Out of your many guest appearances on various TV shows, was there any particular character that you felt had the potential to run longer, even if a different actor had taken on the role?
No. No, I don't think so. Because the guest stars are always the guest stars. You're there for one shot. Just one episode. Let me think. I can't think of anything. When I first came, the first 3/4 of my career were spent in theater. And that's my first love. So when I came to Los Angeles to begin working or trying to work in television, all I had was a background on a daytime soap opera that I did for 2 years. Right after I left, I was with a theater company in San Francisco called the American Conservatory Theater. I was there for 6 years and did many, many productions. And then I decided to return to New York and get back involved in theater in New York. And so I auditioned for Amadeus and a soap opera called Texas, which was a spin-off from Another World, a show called Another World. And I got both jobs. And I didn't get the Amadeus job right away, but I was going to be paid more money than I'd ever seen doing the soap. And so my agent said, do that. They will come back to you at some point on Amadeus, which they did about 4 months later, to be, as I said before, to be Ian's standby in the role. But the soap was done on 4 cameras, and it was the first television that I'd done since I'd been a child. Because when I was a little kid, I was on a little after-school show in Arkansas where I grew up, and it was a live show that we did every day from 4:30 to 5, right before the Mickey Mouse Club. And so I had that little background. So going to LA and working on single cameras was a bit of an adjustment, which I believe I'm still learning how to do that. Because the tendency, of course, for a stage actor is to play to the back of the house, and the tendency for an actor on screen is just to play for the lens. So it's an adjustment. You have to bring things down, which I'm still in the process of learning exactly how to do that. But I enjoy working in front of camera now much more than I do. Can't do any more theater, I don't think. 8 times a week is just, I can't do it. So that television character of Elliot Carrington on Texas was the second longest, because I did that for 2 years. And I worked opposite a wonderful woman named Beverly Mackenzie, who is no longer with us, but she was a doyenne of daytime television. And I learned more working with her than I could have possibly have learned any other way. And she was, because most of my work was opposite her. And she was always she would just give me the subtlest little adjustments, and they would make all the difference in the world. And she and I became great, great friends, and I mourn her loss to this day. But we had that experience, and then coming into television, being a theater-trained actor and all of that, I played the Nazi of the week on every television show. There was. I think I did every single one of Stephen Cannell's shows. I think I'm the only actor in America that can claim to have played Hamlet and been in a fist fight with Mr. T. So
so my parents, like, because it's from their era, they like to watch a lot of those Stephen J. Cannell shows, and so I ended up seeing a lot of those when I was younger. And it was funny, whenever you would show up, my dad would always point you out and say, "Oh, that's the guy who played Moriarty on Star Trek."
Oh, that's so funny. That's fabulous. Yeah, I played a lot of bad guys on television, but I got to the people that I loved working with. I was so blessed with the people I got to work with in their shows. I think one of my favorite experiences was with Michael Landon on Highway to Heaven, and with Angela Lansbury on Murder, She Wrote, and Tyne Daly and Sharon Gless on Cagney and Lacey. And I'm leaving people out, but I was really lucky with the parts that I got and the actors that I got to work with. And Peter Falk on Columbo, my God, what a wonderful, wonderful guy. So, I've been very blessed in my career, and I'm still at it from time to time.
Yeah. Oh, I should ask you, because I'm a fan of the show, before we let you go. Well, you had a brief appearance on Gotham. What was that like?
Oh, terrific. I love those 2 actors, and I you see, I think that actors of the kind of training that I've had, we really fit really well into science fiction and like the Marvel world, because that reality is heightened. And it's very theatrical. And so we fit into that really well. I mean, that's why my friend Kate was Mulgrew was so fabulous as Janeway, and then turned around and was even more fabulous, if possible, as Red on you know, Orange is the New Black, because it was that incredible theatricality that she brings to the roles, and at the same time it's extremely natural and real, and that's what you're looking for in sci-fi. You want to take it seriously. You want to believe it's either really happening or could possibly happen at some point in the future. And so, you know, I think, I don't know, I wish, for myself, I wish that there would be some Star Trek incarnation that I could be a part of, because I would love to do it.
We would love it so much too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get under all of that makeup, so I want to be Moriarty. I don't want to
Yes.
be. I don't.
Oh,
want to
we want Moriarty too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be. I don't want to cling on. I don't want to have prosthetics on my face. Anyway, so start a campaign. We'll see what happens.
That would be. I think that there are so many people who would rejoice if you came back as Moriarty proper. I think that. Well, I mean, you know, he's an antagonist, but he is such a sympathetic one. Like,
Yeah.
He's so nuanced, and it. I mean, also, I think a lot of the appeal of the character is your charm. You just bring a lot of charm to the role.
You know, I have to give so much credit to Renee Echevarria and to Brian Lane for the writing, because it was like a well-made play. It's like really being in a really, really good theatrical, you know, on the stage experience because of the writing. And I give them all the credit for writing so brilliantly and then allowing me to do it. So there it is.
Well, I mean, they can write it, but then you're the one who has to make it real. So,
but it's a mutual admiration society.
There you go. There you go. So I think that we have basically, used up all our questions. So I guess before we let you go, like, what are you up to right now, or what are you doing in the future? Anything lined up?
It is the one question that I don't think any actor should ever be asked.
I'm sorry.
No, only because it is it's completely unknown. It is a total unknown. I have not you know, COVID shut our business down for 2 years to a large degree, made it very impossible to do the work. Now we have the writers on strike.
Right.
Makes it very hard to do the work. And we have been asked by our union to sign a strike agreement to go in support of the writers, which most of us have signed. And so the actors may be going on strike to support the writers. So I don't know that anybody has any idea what they're doing next.
Oh, goodness sake.
Or if they're doing anything next. I don't know how long this can go on for quite a while. And it's going to affect, you know, the new season of television. It's going to affect we will all be streaming things on BritBox because there won't be any American stuff to watch. So,
right.
But it's time, and it's important that, I mean, just to give you an example of why it's important, right now, those of us who, you know, have done television in the past, we part of our income is residuals that arrive to us from airings all over the world. And every time it's shown somewhere, we'll get 15 cents or $100 or whatever for the work that we did in the past, because it's still our work. It's being seen. And for example, right now, you can see full episodes of The Nanny on YouTube, but we don't get a dime. We don't get a dime. And it isn't right that happens. You can see full episodes of Cheers and Seinfeld and Glee and I don't know what all, but you can see them. Even I Love Lucy, you can see. And I Love Lucy, believe it or not, you know, the residuals they haven't died yet. They go to their estate even after they're gone. So it's there's a lot of things that are happening right now because of the internet and because of streaming services and things like YouTube and so forth, where the actors are really, and the writers should be getting residuals. Everybody who's involved should be getting residuals off of these showings, but all you have to do is subscribe to Netflix, and you've got all of this at your disposal for, you know, for the price of a subscription, which I don't have, so I don't know how much that is, but I don't imagine it's very much. So anyway, I just think that these strikes, as hard as they are on the industry, they happen for a reason.
Right.
And they happen to try and get some sort of balance and recompense for the work that we have all put into this, because believe me, it's work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, we are both in full support.
Thank you.
It's no, it's ridiculous the way just stuff. Probably I probably shouldn't be talking. I don't want to get in trouble.
No, I mean it you know, it's all right to have an opinion. I don't know, you know, I don't know that, you know, that people who aren't in the business understand why these things happen. But
I think we've been learning.
Yeah, and I think it's partly the industry itself not making it clear why these strikes are called, because they just simply don't know. They look at you and you think, well, you're on TV, you've got all the money in the world. Well, that's not true.
Right.
Yeah, there's only very few of the people in the industry are going to have loads of money.
Yeah.
The rest of us are just working actors and writers and directors, and you know, right now, my major source of income at the moment is doing cameos, and you know, I mean, that's it. And I'm keeping Niles alive because most of the requests I get are like, say rude things to my girlfriend. And I'm like, no, I don't say rude things to people I don't know because, well, it would be rude. So
grief.
But so I managed to do the cameos and work myself around that request sometimes, because you know, but I'm my own writer now. I have to make up the stuff that, you know, I say as Niles, because my writers they're not there anymore. So I'm making it up or stealing from people.
Well,
that's
we definitely wish you and you know, all your fellow actors and all the writers, you know, all the luck in the world. And I really hope that things go better for everybody in terms of streaming and residuals, because it's just it's not fair. And I just hope that this strike changes things for the better.
Thank you. We all hope so too. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, all right. I've got nothing else to ask. Dixie, do you think we covered everything?
I think we did.
Okay.
If you're happy, I'm happy, and I thank you for asking me to join you, and I've had a lovely time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've had such a great time talking to you.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, no, something that I almost forgot that I did want to say is that you know, Dixie and I do have a lot of favorite versions of the character of Moriarty, but we have two top favorites that we agree on. So they are the two official favorite versions of Moriarty for this podcast, and one of them is Eric Porter, and the other one is you.
Oh, bless you! Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm in very good company with Mr. Porter. Wonderful actor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thanks. Lovely to meet you both. Take
Lovely
care.
to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dynamics of a Podcast was created by Madeline Quinones, with sound design and editing by Dixie Parkinson, and music by Joshua Harvey. We do this podcast purely for the fun of the thing. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time.